The Sonoma Verde PID is the topic of conversation, and today I have a special guest. Former council member Adrienne Balkum, the Iron Lady, is going to be with us today on Straight Talk with Bunker Bob. It is great to be with you this Monday afternoon. I'm excited today because I have a special guest with me today via Skype, and this is obviously there's been a lot going on in our city as of late, and the most I think the hottest topic right now, in addition to the fee schedule that we'll be talking about on Thursday, is the Sonoma Verde PID. The city council is having a public hearing coming up, and they're going to be talking about. They're going to allow citizens to talk about and to share their opinions about the PID and about the development and those kinds of things. So what we want to do is make sure that I'm talking about it as well. And the best person to talk about that with me is Adrienne Balkum. And I've got her here with me now. Adrienne, it is good to have you with us today. Welcome to the show.
Hi, I'm hoping my volume's up enough. Thanks for having me. Thanks for inviting me to talk about what we're going to talk about. So,
yeah, absolutely. Well, why don't we begin by talking about what a PID is, a Public Improvement District, and before we even do that, I want to highlight the fact that you are the second homeowner. You and your husband Jason were the second homeowners in the Sonoma Verde development. Is that right?
Yeah, we purchased an Altura home. We were the second ones to sign a contract here in Sonoma Verde with Altura Homes. So we were definitely here since the first phase, where there was like no internet and it was just straight dirt, and way before the amenity center was actually put in place. So
no pool, no tennis courts, volleyball courts. I mean, it was basically bare bones, and you were the second homeowner there, right?
Yeah, we were here from the beginning.
so let's talk about the PID. So when you purchased your house, did you understand that you were buying into a PID, a public improvement district?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I just happened to go through some of my mortgage documents, and there's like no question that when you're going through your title company and they're going through the documents and reviewing all the documents that you need to know to be aware of what you're buying, they have to share legally. They have to share with you that let you inform you that you're in a public improvement district. And I mean, we knew that we were getting in this before we signed on, but one of the things that they do is that they tell you the instructions that, basically about the assessments and how the process goes. And it may be new to you, but they give you like new information to you. But essentially, you have to sign an agreement, and there's a signature on there. So there's no question that you were definitely informed at that point, and they tell you exactly how much your parcel is, and they give you a chart to kind of give you an idea if you were to choose to either pay the entire parcel at that time or let interest accrue over a 30-year span, because that's what this is 30 years, and you can pay the installments every year when you get your tax assessment from the Rockwell CAD. And essentially, you could either spend that first amount of money right then, or you're going to pay the interest that's been added to you in 30 years.
So essentially, there are two parts to the PID for every lot owner. The first portion of the PID basically is what is paying back what essentially is an investment, a bond by bondholders who are private bondholders who basically fund the PID. And let's just say, and I don't know the actual cost of the Sonoma Verde PID. I don't have those numbers with me, but I just for simplification's sake, let's say that the PID cost that the bondholders gave $10 million for the PID, the Public Improvement District. And what that does, that $10 million goes to the developer, who will then use that money to create the infrastructure, the roads, the sewer lines, the storm sewers, and all of the things that go into developing a development, making it possible for home builders to then buy those lots and build on them. Well, the total cost, that $10 million that I'm using as an example, would then be divided among the number of lots that there are within that phase of development. So that Adrienne, you're in phase 1, and so there are so many houses in phase 1, and your portion of the PID is divided based upon the size of your lot. So the larger lot that you have, the more you're going to be paying, not just for your lot, but for the PID on that lot. That's the first portion. So you're basically taking out a mortgage on that lot through the PID, and you can pay it off, just like you just said, early, all at once, or you can delay it for 30 years. The second portion of the PID is the maintenance function. Now, once you pay off that first part of the PID, you no longer have any obligation to that at all, and the person who purchases that home no longer has to pay for it either. But no matter what, the maintenance portion of the PID, the second portion, that's something that will stay with the land and stay with the lot, and is something that the city council has the power to control how much is in that. But going back to that first portion of the PID, I just want to make sure that people understood the differences in what we're talking about when it comes to that, the two portions of the PID. Can you give me an idea of your lot and how much you pay for the PID, and over time what that would look like?
Sure. Well, first off, in phase 1, we have 3 varied different size lot sizes. I live on a 0.60 of an acre. See, I said it right, 0.60 of an acre.
Yes, you did.
And then there's 0.70 of an acre, and then there's 0.90 of an acre lot size. So back to about me personally, I live on a 0.60 of an acre, and what they do is that they tell you, like in the first page, they'll tell you exactly how much your parcel is, and in my case, it's $24,430.44. And in this chart, all these little pieces of information that's in this chart, it'll tell you like the lot size, the land use class. Mine is a class 5 because it's a 0.60 foot lot. But all of these little details are important information because it's listed in the SAP, the Service and Assessment Plan, which is what was signed back in 2015, and then it was pretty much set in motion back in 2007, so that the plan is meeting all the scheduled expectations. Is kind of like a check and balances to make sure that all of the numbers are coming in and what's being paid out, and making sure that all the phases have their own separate bonds to take care of certain parts of infrastructure. So they break it down into years, and then it'll tell you like what the principal is, the interest, the maintenance levy. The maintenance levy is the $62 that we're saying that's like this number could eventually change in the future. Right now it's $62, but your actual agreement, your PID portion of your parcel, that's not going to change, except that it's going to have interest if you don't pay it off the first year. And then you have your administrative expenses, your total annual installment, and then your outstanding assessment balance. So by the time we have chosen to do installments, annual installments for the next 30 years, and so essentially we're going to be paying over $60,000. So it's over $61,927.
And so the lot itself, if you could pay it today or you could have paid it. Well, you can pay it at any time, but if you had paid it off when you first purchased the property, you could have paid it off for $24,000 and some change, right?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
And now it's my understanding that there are 2 lot owners in the Sonoma Verde development that have already paid off that first portion of the PID. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so they don't owe anything else. They are only assessed that second portion, that maintenance function. And it's my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, that there is that each lot is equal in proportion to what that maintenance portion is. So in other words, even though you have a bigger lot, your share of that maintenance is still the same, because yes, that maintenance portion is really not it makes no difference whether or not you have a bigger lot or not. It really goes to maintain the streets, to maintain the swimming pool, all of the other amenities that go along with that. Is that right?
Yeah, it's just maintenance. It's no different than what we would consider like an HOA would prepare, like an assessment to repair a road, and they would tell all of the property owners, okay, we're going to need to repair a road, and so it's going to cost $50 or $100. So in addition to your HOA fee, your annual dues, you would pay a separate amount that would just go to that dedicated fund to repair that road. So it's similar to that.
Okay, and so some of the challenge or the outcry from certain members or certain lot owners in the Sonoma Verde development are trying to make hay out of an idea that somehow the city council has control over the amenities and what the developer does with the amenities and things like that. What can the city council do to control what the developer does inside the Sonoma Verde development that is in addition to, outside of the public improvement district?
That's the thing that's so really wonky about it, because they don't have what the developer does, and as far as supplying different types of amenities, that's not their business to be involved in.
That's not the city's business.
No, that's not their business, the city's business.
Right.
And there's no agreement that has anything stating that they have to, put this in place, put that in place. The only thing that's in these agreements is talking about that they had expectation to have like an area for the school, and then there's a daycare. They did talk about it was going to be 7 phases, but they brought it down to 5 phases. But as far as amenities like putting a splash park or any other types of amenities, there is no none of that information in any of the agreements.
Yeah, so. I find it interesting that some of the things that some of the comments that are being thrown around on social media by certain homeowners make it appear. I mean, it sounds as though it is outright fabrication of truth, when in some of the things in most of the things that this individual is posting on social media, it is really trying to create an uproar and put the city council in a position that tries to, I guess, influence whether or not they approve the PID, the next phases of the PID.
Yeah, I mean, this is about phase 2 and approving, the improvements that was listed in this document with it's called the SAP, and it's like a tax assessment role. Let
me ask you this: does the SAP include amenities like baseball parks, baseball fields, soccer fields, splash parks? Does the SAP include that? No, it doesn't, and that's the key, and that's why this individual is so. I mean, you know who I'm talking about. This is somebody who is honestly. I don't think that the guy's stupid. He is literally, I think, someone who just loves to stir up trouble where just to create a controversy, because the fact of the matter is there's nothing that the city can do to force the developer to follow through on certain amenities that may or may not have been promised, whether or not, I mean, if from my point of view, if there's amenities that the developer has promised the people, well, then that's a civil issue, and that the city's citizens have the homeowners have the right to take that developer to court. But the city is obligated to follow through on its obligations that were established back in 2009 and back in 2015, long before you or me ever got on the city council. And if you don't do that, well, then you find yourself in legal problems, having real legal problems for the city.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many issues with that. It's just, there's a place for all that, and when it comes to amenities and all that, that's the discussion that you have with your HOA. And in this particular case, the HOA board members are the developers. And that's where that discussion needs to happen. And in fact, we've had this discussion. I used to be the appointed a liaison for the community, and I was asked by the developer to organize about 7 different committees, and it was to help with the communication breakdown. We had 2 property managements before this current property management, and there was like an issue where there was not a consistent amount of information getting to the residents, and it was, so we were trying to figure out how to get that communication out there so that people have the same information, because there was lots of misunderstandings of what their expectations were whenever they got to Sonoma Verde. They were promised, or they believed that they heard that they were going to have like a gym or a splash park or all these different things, and it's like, no, that's the developer wanted to make sure that he was getting information to the residents, and so he was working through the HOA that way, because we can't control what salespeople are going to say, and there has been issues in the past. Those salespeople are no longer there anymore, but there was issues in the past where salespeople did oversell, or maybe didn't
overpromise.
I guess that's a good word.
Right.
But even in our focus groups back in 2016, me and several other residents who were here, the ones who have been here the longest, were part of this focus group. I mean, we talked about what would be an interesting amenity that's completely different from other developments, and one of them was suggested was about a dog park. But again, those were just ideas kind of thrown around. There really wasn't anything set in stone. And so I think, and as we move forward, I think it was back in August of this past year, one of the last email communications I sent out to the residents was to show a map where the developer actually wanted the map to be seen for the residents to see all of the area that's coming, or it's actually being in construction, which was phase 2. And then there was a little pathway that was dug out through the trees, so that's where the new trails are going to be. And he was showing in pictures it's kind of like a greenery, but he was kind of giving the impression like, hey, this is the area that is going to be where the new ball fields are going to be, and everything takes time. It doesn't happen like overnight. I mean, there is a process to it and stuff. So he was just, has always been with the same developer, and this is how it was in the past. When we first got here, we knew that there was going to be an amenity center. We didn't even have internet when we first got here, so it took several months.
Now you have fiber optic.
Yeah, we didn't have fiber optic.
Pretty nice.
Yeah, and so we had to wait. I mean, we had to wait for the tennis courts. We had to wait for the basketball court. So things took time. So as far as like what was promised, all that kind of stuff, I mean, all I know is that I have the information from the developer, or what he's provided to us as the residents. We have had HOA meetings where he's done his due diligence to show like what the current situation is. I mean, that's the place for that discussion to have about amenities and things of that nature. And they do pretty good as far as like communicating with the residents, is letting them know like, hey, we want to hear from you, and that communication. But again, I mean, going to the city council demand a timeline and demand a splash park and amenities that, I mean, first off, uh, eventually the discussion's going to happen where the homeowners have to understand the current HOA fees is basically taking care of, it's maintaining our development as far as like utilities and, cleaning up the pool and things of that nature. And when we start adding on at different amenities, we're going to have to maintain that too. So, right
It'll
now
be an increase in the HOA cost,
Oh, yeah.
the HOA dues. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. That's where I'm getting at, is that I don't think people realize is that how much this stuff costs. And so we're at 660 right now. We just increased our dues this past year. It also is paying for the
You're at $660 is your annual dues?
Yes,
for the HOA.
And HOA dues.
And that's separate from the PID. It's the two portions of the PID. So in addition to the two portions of the PID, you also have $660 in annual HOA dues, correct?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
And the thing that people need to understand is like we don't really, yes, they're open to listening to us on that, and they do want to hear from us on that, and because at the end of the day, they want amenities that's going to work for us, because for us to use them, But even if they're long gone and we become part of the HOA board, we're going to have to be used to taking care of our budget and maintaining our development, the cleanup and taking care of the maintenance, all that kind of stuff. So it doesn't mean that once we have that control at that point, I would hope that the new board at that point will put it out there about how much does it cost to have this structure or this amenity that we would like to have in the future, put a vote to it for the community to vote on, and then get it done. And then basically we may have to pay an increase in fees, whatever that fee is, but we need that information at that point. So putting it all on the developer, like, okay, the developer needs to supply us this, this, and this, and this, and not thinking about the cost of this in the future, how much is it going to cost us? I mean, I don't know about every homeowner in Sonoma Verde is going to be really thrilled to have to pay, significantly more money for HOA dues.
Well, and that's an important distinction, because the state of Texas allows HOAs to increase their annual dues by 10% without a vote of the homeowners. The problem is, in a development that is still under development, each lot a developer owns is accounted for something. It's different for every development. Do you know how many votes each lot the developer gets?
Oh, well, right now we don't have any.
No, I'm talking about the developer. You have one vote. I know that by state of Texas law, but the developer sometimes gets 20, 30 votes per lot that they own. So essentially what it ensures is that the developer has complete and total control over the homeowners association. So anything that the developer were to decide, if they wanted to, if they said, okay, we'll put in the splash pool, okay, we'll put in these other things, they'll also add to it an increase in the HOA dues that you as a homeowner, you have no ability to stop them from doing it. He has absolute control. So you're kind of speaking to the beware of what you wish for because you just might get it scenario. Am I right?
Yeah, exactly. And I just want to be a little bit more vigilant and cautious before we start like, oh, we want this amenity, we want that amenity. It's like, I think people need to get real familiar with the current budget that we have currently and making sure that everybody's paying their dues, because that will affect us in the future. And I think that there just needs to be awareness, and also knowing that we're all members, like in Sonoma Verde, we're all members of the homeowners association, and so sometimes certain words don't translate. Some people will blame, like, well, it's the HOA's fault, and it's like, okay, you're also a member of the HOA, so you're technically blaming yourself. So the terms are important whenever we're speaking about certain things.
Absolutely. Yeah. I just want to clarify something. Can you've been a homeowner in Sonoma Verde since the very beginning. You're the second lot owner in the development. I know that you have been very involved in helping with the HOA and doing newsletters, things like that. Can you tell us a little bit about how much the developer over the years has paid you for all of the work that you've done?
Well, I haven't been paid by the developer for any of my services or my volunteering. There was a rumor going around, and
I wonder. And by the way, the same person who is now posting about how the appointed mayor and city council did all of these things, approving bonds and things like that, when he said to stop, that's the same person. Okay, this is someone who wouldn't know the facts if it bit him in the tail end, and that's I mean, I've never experienced someone as confounding as this individual. Literally has no capacity to reason. It is a really difficult thing. So what's funny is if he continues his assault against the city, well, he's going to be assaulting the same people that he helped get elected, and I'm guessing he's going to be saying the same things to them. I'm wondering if they are going to be as shocked and as frustrated as we were, because this is a guy who doesn't listen to reason, listens to himself only, and he is one of the administrators of these Facebook groups, the FU McLennan Chisholm group, euphemistically called Friends Uniting for McLennan Chisholm, and the other one, Friends and Families for McLennan Chisholm. I mean, both of these Facebook groups are nothing more than sites of pure propaganda for the propaganda's sake. These are not areas where people can find facts or the truth. If you want facts or the truth, you certainly won't find it there. So when we think about one of the things I highlighted in last week's show is that the Rockwall County Appraisal District has basically said that they're only going to work with one management company. So all the cities either use that management company or you'll have to do your own billing. And so the city council last week did that, and I think that was do you have any comments about that or any thoughts?
Oh yeah, essentially, we've known for quite some time. It's like, I mean, the whole thing is a ruse. I'm sorry. That's just how I look at it. Essentially, back in the fall, there was like quote unquote issues happening with our city PID administrator, and there really wasn't anything finite or definite about what the issues were. And I would ask, and again, there's like no real proof or evidence of it. Could anybody do their job better? Absolutely. There's always room for improvement. But it wasn't until earlier in this year that I was made aware, and again, this is me as a former council member, that all the cities were basically told that they were not, this is the Rockwall County Appraisal District, they were not going to work with any PID administrators. The current ones, they're just dumping them. They weren't going to accept any work with them. And then we were just basically told that that P3 Works was going to be the only company that they were okay with working with, and that's the only. It's always better to go through the county to do the assessments. It's just I think everybody.
Yeah, because it shows up on the tax bill, and it makes it makes it very hard to not pay that bill.
Yeah, it's well, in our case with our city administrator, it's like we have a very small office, and she has a lot on her plate. So it's not just sending out a bill that's in regard to being a PID administrator. I mean, it's kind of like a portfolio in a way for like stocks, where you have to show all the activity that's related to that particular the PID, the assessment, the tax assessment role, and all that kind of stuff. And there's deadlines you have to meet, and so it's always best to have a administrator do that. But anyway, this whole idea that they were going to rank at one of the meetings on how which ones they believed that was the best candidate, that was just all fluff. So
their hands. I mean, in fairness, their hands were kind of tied. Because of what the county's doing, and by, excuse me, not the county, excuse me, that's the state of Texas. The county appraisal district is not a part of the county. It's actually a jurisdiction of the state. One of the things I wanted to talk about real quickly is that there's a public hearing going to happen on June 11th, that the purpose of which is comments on questions proposed for the assessment plan of 1C in Phase 2, and the current update of the cost included in the update. So can you speak to what this public hearing is about, and what citizens can expect to get out of it by attending or speaking there?
Yeah, essentially this particular public hearing, it's normal to have a public hearing for this type of thing, and it's part of the
is it regulated by the state that you have to have a public hearing?
Oh yeah, like you have to put it in the newspaper, advertise it. Right. You also have to send a letter. I believe it's within 200 feet of whatever development or construction that's being discussed, and so I think there's only less than 20 people that probably received a letter, because it's about Phase 2. So, and that's what this thing is about. It's not about Phase 1 or the amenities, or has the developer met Phase 1 promises of amenities that was originally sold to us. I mean, that's not what this thing's about. So it's about the infrastructure related, and to make sure that there's public hearings for people to like share their thoughts about it, and whether they agree, and they feel that the numbers that they're reviewing are good, and it's I think the bonds were about $10 million on this particular one for this phase.
For Phase 2, and so it is comments and questions proposed assessment plan, and the assessment plan, and so that's the key there, because what they're proving is how that plan goes forward. Are they going to be talking about, or had they already made a decision? Because honestly, I can't recall if they've made a decision about the next year's assessment on the maintenance side of the assessment for phase 1 and 2.
Oh yeah, so that was whenever I was on council, and one of the things that I motioned for was the engineering study to come back before we made any type of decision, so that we can basically determine, is the rate appropriate? And I don't believe that was actually shared. So I don't know what their I know what they saw, because I could see the documents. But as far as how they're going to make the decision, I would hope that they're going to listen to their to the hired help to make sure that they're reading what they're reading appropriately, because essentially they're giving an update, and they should listen to their advice, because this is not just happened this past week. I mean, this has been a several years of a project that's been going on, and it's their job to make sure that they're reviewing the numbers appropriately.
Yeah. So you've I wanted to just highlight or go back to one thing about just coming back, I guess, to the to the phase 2, and you've got some. You said that you had some visuals to show about what's going on in phase 2. Do you want to talk about that at all?
I mean, if anybody can go to the map that's provided in the document, if there's hang on, I'm trying to find where. Well, I'll tell you.
That's okay.
I'll just give you the document, and then hopefully people will take the time to read it. And I think it's good for anybody that's a resident. Hey, you know, actually a property owner, just to, you know, you're aware of, you know, what does the PID mean? What does what is the maintenance portion taken care of? And to always remember that it's about the infrastructure. Infrastructure is the PID. You got your HOA dues. Your HOA dues takes care of the maintenance of our amenities. And you know, of course, we have an HOA property manager that's we pay that person or that group. And if we have events, that's also part of our dues that takes care of that. So hopefully that people will get an understanding. There's a separation in all these things that you're investing in your home.
Yeah, and I think that's the key of this whole thing is the fact that the added amenities and things that basically is kind of going through the HOA, and since the developer controls the HOA and controls what goes in and what doesn't, the developer has every right to pull it back or add things as they seem fit based upon what I guess the demand is. This is a civil issue ultimately, and if homeowners in Sonoma Verde are concerned about the developer not doing what they said that they would do when they purchased their homes and property, well, I think they should address that issue in court, don't you?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, that's where that's where you should be having that discussion. So, you know.
Yeah. So what else? What have we not covered on the PID that we wanted that you thought that you wanted to address?
Well, I just hope that anybody can come to the public hearing. You can come and talk during the city council citizen comments. You can kind of share your piece about it. Of course, like if you see that there's issues with the road. Oh yeah, speaking of which, back in 2016, I started back in 2015. One of the things that I got involved with, city government and the HOA and all that is because I did see problems on the roads. I saw that there was drainage issues, and I got with a lot of the residents here in Sonoma Verde, and I took pictures, and I ended up presenting this evidence to the city council, as well as met with the developer and the city administrator. And all my goal was this was the appropriate time to show, okay, the infrastructure that we're talking about, yeah, these things need to be repaired because they were not doing what it was supposed to be doing. I mean, we had some water that was would just linger, and it would be large portions of water that, just standing water, and it just wasn't draining well. So they repaired it pretty quickly within the next few months after I presented. I think it was back in June of 2016 whenever they finally got to repairing it. But that was during the time. And so what I'm encouraging those who are in, they were talking about phase 2. If you see stuff like that, you can do what I did and present that evidence to the city council and the developer and the city administrator. And then this is what this is all about. The developer will have to make sure that he's improving those roads to meet the standards that they're expected to based on their contract agreement.
Yeah, and I think that's the key. When you were dealing with these issues and bringing it before the city council, you were doing so because there is a 2-year window from when, for instance, a street goes in to the time that it becomes the possession of the city. The streets become a possession of the city. the sewer system becomes a possession of the city, but the amenities do not. That's why you brought that before our city council. The swimming pool does not become the possession of the city. The city is not responsible for the swimming pool or ballparks or any amenities like that. But the city is completely responsible for the roads and things like that. And of course, the people who are paying for the roads, for the streets, for the sewer system, that's going to be the homeowners in Sonoma Verde. That's why the people who are clamoring for the city council to get involved with the amenities are really barking up the wrong track. They really don't know what they're talking about. This is the wrong way to go about getting their needs for these other amenities fulfilled. So I think that's a key difference between amenities and infrastructure that is managed by the PID. The PID does not manage your amenities. The PID manages all of the infrastructure, right?
Right, exactly. And also one thing to note too is that I think I don't know if I mentioned it earlier, just to make sure that we're clear, is that there's only one PID currently in McLean and Chisholm within the city limits.
Yeah, and by the way, I think you're correcting me because I had said in last week's show, I had said that there's the PID number 2. I misspoke because there's only one PID. It's just the phase of development for the PID that was being addressed, not a separate PID.
Right. We have now he did change it. If you read the original documents, it was saying 7 phases, but they did drop it down to 5 phases. And also, we are the only development in the city of McLean and Chisholm that is not on septic. Everywhere else is septic. So I just want to make sure that that's said and clear.
Yeah,
I know that that's
an important distinction. It really is. Well, and the other thing I think, I've always said that the city owns 3 roads, total of 3 miles, and it may be 4 roads, but it's a total of 3 miles of roads total. When the city took possession of the Sonoma Verde streets and roads, it does obligate the city to make repairs, those kinds of things, but that cost is then passed on to the homeowners, the lot owners who live in Sonoma Verde. And I think what's also important when we talk about the issue related to the maintenance portion of the PID, one of the concerns has always been that there's not enough money coming into that fund for the long term, because if something were to happen within, let's say, phase 1, a street needed to be repaired, and concrete costs are incredibly expensive. And it's a cost that I think a few people really recognize and can appreciate. But if that expense is needed, the city would then pay for that and then go to the PID administrator and say, okay, we paid this, here's how much it cost, and we need to be paid back. If there's not enough money in that PID management fund, then what would happen is the city would then tell the county appraisal district to then add to the next year's assessment the difference and divide it up among all of the lots within that phase of development, which means that Sonoma Verde residents who are already paying for your lot, the PID price for the lot, who are already paying a management fee on the PID, who are already paying an HOA dues, would then be assessed another additional special assessment to cover the cost. And you don't get to, it's not like you can hold that off and absorb that into the long-term cost of your PID. No, you have to pay that next tax year, which is why it's so important that the PID administrator is keeping tabs on exactly what the costs are, the rising cost of maintaining the infrastructure of the Sonoma Verde development, so that frankly homeowners are not caught surprised, because bottom line, the rest of the city is not obligated. Other taxpayers are not obligated to fund that, and obviously the homeowners in Sonoma Verde are.
Yeah, and that's why there's a schedule. That's why this stuff is happening now. Whereas, because I think the tax collection begins October 1st. If you're on escrow, you'll know what I'm talking about. So it's picked up then, the billing process and all that. So I think if you don't have it paid by February 1st of the following year, I think you're considered delinquent. But again, that's if you're on escrow. If you're not on escrow, then you probably will be concerned at that point. But I'm on escrow, so it's already taken care of that. So, but yeah, so fun stuff with the PID. Hopefully, people on June 11th will come up there, and like I said, the place of the putting demands on the city council to put demands on the developer to come up with a timeline or change the plan that was already the plan's already set. Folks, there's so many wheels that
already in motion.
There's just agreements that have to be set, and all these different changes, and we can't change the agreement that it's going to be 1095 in 5 phases. Of 1095 is in 1,995 people that are of lots of properties that is going to be here, residential lots of people that are going to be here. Of course, we don't know how many of those will have families and all that kind of stuff, but that's what's expected in 5 phases. So anyway, do you want to talk about something else?
Yeah, why don't we real quick talk about the sanitation services. I accidentally hit the wrong button, and you were. It made you disappear for a second, but you're back. Okay. We could hear you. I just hit the wrong button. Sorry about that. But the final things in the last few minutes that we have is the sanitation service is CWD. It's a new sanitation service. The city council, I predict, is going to pull that contract and go with Republic. For a lot of reasons, but I do think it's going to end up costing citizens a lot more. But the reason why one of the things that you found when you were on city council is that there were a lot of people who were not paying the regular increases that the rest of us were, and there were some people that weren't paying into their trash service at all. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So essentially, for those who were not, this is from the previous comment. If you guys were paying less than $75, I had the basic service, okay? But if anybody was paying less than $75, you got a deal, because there was lots of people, and not just 1 or 2 people. There was neighborhoods across the city that were actually being billed way less. I'm talking about in the $60 range for the basic service, and how long this has been going on, I do not know. I never got the chance to do an investigation on it. I would have hoped that the city administrator and the city accountant would have discovered that difference, but essentially the previous company did a breach of contract, and we are supposed to get a franchise fee on, and so that's what my concern was, is that we are missing a good chunk of money for a number of years, because they were not being charged. The homeowners were not being charged the same rate as pretty much the other half of McLennan Chisholm. So yeah.
And so those are people in the ETJ. There were people in the ETJ who were getting service, and they weren't paying for it as well.
Well, the ones in the ETJ shouldn't have been receiving service, and that's they shouldn't have been. They were just literally getting free service. They were, and the guys who are working the trucks and all that, they're supposed to be reviewing who are they're supposed to be picking up or dropping off at, and there just really wasn't accountability when it comes down to it. There wasn't anybody overseeing in that. And do I believe that in the transition there was problems? Oh, absolutely. There is no question. It was actually kind of like a perfect storm, because we didn't realize how much of a problem it was until the transfer happened. I mean, CWD you know, there were some issues that was happening between CWD and trying to get who are the people that they needed to go pick up trash from. And so
You're talking about the former trash service that they were not billing correctly. They were not paying franchise fees, obviously, to the city. We're talking about a lot of money that was being missed. That people were paying them, but some of them, and a lot of people were also getting this service for free. So you're talking about the transition between the old company and the new. The old company was not being very cooperative with the new company and providing the information that was necessary.
Well, and the other thing right? too, they could have had like just bad management. That's what I would assume, because they changed over like 3 different companies. It was once like IESI, Progressive Waste, and Waste Services. There was like 3 different changeover of companies. So I don't know if it was a management issue or what, but all I know is that during that transition period from the old company to the new company, which is CWD, went to them for, you know, who to go to like who the residents were to pick up, to do pickups from. And well, in my personal opinion, that shouldn't have happened. They should have had the information come across from our city administrator. And again, we had a new city administrator going through as well, and so all of that information should be known from the city, is like who exactly lives in McLennan Chisholm and who doesn't, so that they can basically know like this is who needs to be having their place serviced. And I think that there was a ball dropped there. And again, I mean, we look at hindsight, and we definitely learned a lot of things, and there's going to be some changes as far as when the contract ends. I mean, anybody can sit there and say, oh yeah, you know, have an annual contract start from January 1st to ending on December 31st is the norm. But when you're talking about trash service, no, you need to have it done a couple of months before, so that you can avoid the holiday, because there's often a kind of a issue with holidays, because you have more trash that needs to be picked up during that time, and it's just a real difficult transition period. So I think I believe that's been changed to have a different, or at least that's on the way to have a different date to start and end. But as far as like, you know, what's happening, and to have like a review of their service and all that, I mean, that's the whole point of why we had them in the citizen survey, is that, you know, I know that there's going to be improvements of service that are needed, but the concerns that we had whenever you're reviewing all these different contracts is like, is it going to meet our current community's needs? Because we are a special community. We have roads that are not all cement. We're not like Rockwall. We're not like Royal City or Forney. There's lots of roads in the city of McLennan Chisholm that are asphalt or other type of, you know, rock, and I don't know the term right now, but essentially a lot of neighborhoods. I mean, most neighborhoods, we have to maintain our own streets, and you know, yeah. My little neighborhood of Quail Creek, we just did a special assessment where we were, you know, when these big trucks come into our neighborhood. They do run havoc on our streets. So I think CWD had a double axle truck, which was supposed to be easier on the streets, and Republic is not. Bottom line, I guess if we were to bottom line this, I predict that the city is going to get rid of the CWD contract and go with Republic. What do you think? I see that as a remote chance possibility, because like I said, during the discussions of whenever we were trying to sign them as our contracting service, I see that as a couple of the council members wanted Republic. And look, let me just be clear. Republic is a great company. Okay, Republic has a lot of great features that they have in their service and all that. But the issue comes back to is like, you know, about what is best for our community, and you know, not going through the process of understanding like what our roads are, and answering those questions about, you know, the cost and what was going to meet our needs. Excuse me, I'm getting over a cough. And so there's Republic is one of those companies that that brings a lot of value. But again, I mean, we need to be concerned with their trucks, and they are going to have a different rate, and the rate is going to be much higher than what we currently are paying. And of course, you'll have people that will say like, "Oh, well, you'll get what you pay for." Okay, well, that's your opinion. And again, not everybody is going to be happy, and then there's some people that will be. But at the end of the day, I think that that's what they're leading up to. So even if you have a public forum and you just review, or you want to hear from, the citizens, or let's see, what did Councilmember Larkin quote? He was calling citizens civilians. Yeah.
You heard that too, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So, even if you have people come up there to the city hall to share in a public forum or the public hearing about assessing CWD service and all that, okay, let's do that. We'll have 50, 80 people come up there and maybe only have 20 people actually speak. That is like a minuscule amount of people that represent or that live in the city of McLennan-Chisholm. We have over 3,000 people that live in this city. So just imagine only 20 people speaking up and saying their issues with CWD, whether they like them or not. At the end of the day, it's like, if you're going to base your information just on that, that should be alarming for anybody, because that's not your only source of information that you should be getting your information from. So,
well, I appreciate that, and I guess we'll see what the public hearing, what happens with the public hearing. Councilmember Balkum, former Councilmember Balkum. I mean, I can still call you that according to the rules of decorum, but I still think of you as a council member. But Adrienne, thank you so much for your time today and for being with us. Hope we can do this again and that you'll come back.
Oh, thank you. Well, I had a good time. I hope that anyone that's listening, I want to make sure that you understand that the information I just shared on that, I'm going to have it for Bunker Bob to put a link underneath so that you can be able to read this information yourself. It's just really good for you to be informed and for you to know a little bit what these words mean and what we're talking about. Because the last thing I would hope, I don't want to see people being misled or get all upset about something that's not the case. So
yeah.
Anyway, well, thank you again.
Thank you so much. Great to be with you today. And remember, folks, one of the things to think about as we continue to grow as a community is just to remember how important it is to be well informed and to know what it is that is actually happening without I guess, succumbing to what a lot of the people in our community are trying to make you believe. So make sure that you're listening to a lot of different sources, not just me and not just what I present. I hope that you're looking into some of the things that people say and rather than just taking it at face value. I hope that today was helpful to you. It is this is the first time we did something remote like this, and I think it worked well. It was great to have Councilmember Balkum with me today. On Thursday, I'm going to have Councilmember Scott Turnbull, and former council member Scott Turnbull, former Mayor Pro Tem Scott Turnbull. We're going to be talking about the fee schedule for the city, which is a monumental issue that the city of McLennan-Chisholm is now facing, because the state law that was just passed by the state legislature really curbs the city's ability to bring in revenue. And so we're going to talk about does that hurt the city, and if so, how much, and are taxes really coming? So be sure that you join us on Thursday. So until next time, I look forward to being with you, and I hope that you have a great day. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.